Do not beat up your beginners, okay? You need your beginners to keep coming back to make your team stronger, all right? Arm wrestling's weird in the fact that it's an individual sport, but it takes a whole effing team to make you, the individual, so good. And if your beginners stop showing up, all of a sudden you got nobody to train with, okay? Stop ripping open your beginners, okay? And we'll talk about training ladies later. But when it comes to weight training and outside table time, I train women exactly the same way I train men, and I train lightweights the same way I train heavyweights, except for the fact if you have to cut weight, we have to adjust that training a little bit, because if you don't have to cut weight, you've got a lot of extra time to build muscle mass and work capacity, and you can get that volume. But if you have to cut weight, you don't want to add a whole bunch of weight to your chest or your legs, which aren't helping you win arm wrestling matches, okay? So, elbow pain. It comes from the small tears in your tendons, right? And there's very few exercises that train your tendons, all right? Most exercises, and most of us, there's all kinds of information about bodybuilding out there, so most of us, when we start arm wrestling, we adapt some kind of bodybuilding program to it. And arm wrestling, more than any other sport, even more so than strongman competition, we're constantly inventing exercises and shit. The bad part of that is there's 10,000 people out there with arm wrestling exercises. It's hard to determine which one you want to do. The good part is, out of 10,000 exercises, a bunch of them are very good ones, okay? But to actually strengthen the tendons, you have to load the muscle very quickly, quicker than the muscle can react. So that's usually a plyometric stuff. So the medicine ball talk, throwing stuff, that kind of stuff. Bands help train your tendons quite a bit. But the best for arm wrestling that I found was actually developed by a power lifter for increasing the tendons in his bench pressing, and that was J.M. Blakely. And he's got a video out there on YouTube called the J.M. Press. Those will fix your elbow pain. Okay, I started arm wrestling in 2000. Arm wrestling's been popular in America for decades before that, and nobody's ever gotten the key to that elbow pain. Learn the J.M. Press, all right? And if you don't, can we pull that bench out a second? You know how to do the J.M. presses, right, Paul? Yep. Can you demonstrate it?
No, we don't.
All right. Okay, who knows?
What?
You can do a J.M. press?
I think so.
All right. Stephanie can.
Sounds like.
Let's just do an empty bar. Yeah.
Like right here.
Oh, can you put your head at the other end?
Yeah.
What this does,
I hope I do it right.
Can you do the 45-pound bar?
Yeah.
Okay, so
take it here?
it's a cross between a skull crusher and then like a narrow grip. So what she'll do is she'll come halfway down into her press, then she'll roll her wrist back and bring the bar down to about her neck, down to her neck. All right. She stops when her upper arm and her forearm stop right there. So the more, all right. So what you're doing is you're putting all that stress right into that. Then she presses it back up.
Do I go back up like this?
You just press it back up. Yep. But come bring it back down here slower. Roll your wrist back. Okay.
Yeah.
Then the other thing is you false grip it. So you put the thumb on the same side of the bar as your fingers to get a little bit more of that wrist roll back. So bring it down to your neck. Yeah. And then up. Okay. These strengthen the tendons, but it will rehab your tendons. It will make that beginning arm wrestling pain go away.
I think so.
Yes, sir.
Does that work with dumbbells too?
No, it does not. And we're going to get to text me, message me anytime you want, okay? I answer all the questions. But I get people who say, dude. They don't say dude. They say, it's almost embarrassing. They go, sir or champ, I follow your training, I do all your advice, and then they proceed to tell me all the stuff they do that I've never said. One guy said, I'm doing the JM presses with dumbbells just like you said. I never said you could do it with dumbbells. The problem with a dumbbell is it doesn't control it. Yeah, it has to be done with a barbell, right? But bring that down and it's the stretch. Now, the JM press will push up your bench quite a bit. I am not a believer that bench pressing is all that important for arm wrestling. But that is a tendon building machine. Yes, sir.
Have you tried to do a modified version of it, kind of with push-ups or something like that?
I have not, but Marcio Barbosa says he does not have a bench. So he was going to try to do them on the floor. You can, if you lay flat on a floor, because the bar doesn't, your elbows don't come below your back. So you might be able to do them on a floor, right? I would think the problem with doing it on a push-up is you don't get to roll your wrist back, which throws a little extra stress into it, you know?
You mean back as in this back or this back?
This back.
Okay, because she was doing them this way, and I just want to make sure that they're this way.
Oh. Well, why don't you come up here? Everybody, you know what? Everybody should come up here and try this.
While we were transitioning here. Close is better than loose.
Start here, and we're going to talk about grip in a second. Start here. Come down just a little bit with your elbows. Now roll your wrists down to your neck. And stop. Stop.
Why is his hands so close
Now
together,
press
though?
up.
The wrists go flat again, so
Yep.
it's like
Now roll them again. Yep.
I'm going flat out. Am I doing it?
Yep. And you stop. The whole trick is to stop and your forearm and your biceps hit. All right? Because now you're stretching all of these and it's pushing down.
What do you think of his grip so close together?
We're going to talk about grip in a second. J.M. Blakely, the power lifters all do this, and they all do their normal bench press grip. Okay?
Thanks for coming, man.
But I'm going to talk about powerlifting a lot. I don't know shit about powerlifting. All right? What I did was I read a whole bunch of stuff on a powerlifting website, the Westside Barbell, and adapted it to arm wrestling. So I can speak intelligently about powerlifting to people who don't powerlift, but I can't speak intelligently about powerlifting to powerlifters. Okay? But what I do know is when you are powerlifting, when you bench, it's the same grip and it's the same plane of motion every single time. Arm wrestling, we don't get that, right? If I grab you, you're going to push me this way and I'm going to pull you, and then you're going to pull me something differently. So I don't have the ability, and the bench press would be sweet if arm wrestling was that same train of motion every time. But then it would be weightlifting, it wouldn't be arm wrestling. So what I'm going to do is most powerlifting movements, I don't care if they talk and gab all the time. If these guys don't care, I don't care. All right? But what I'm going to say is you need to train all that different angles because you're going to arm wrestle taller people, shorter people, fast people, short people. So we're going to take this JM press, right, which they do with their normal legal grip, and we're going to do close grip, medium grip, wide grip, and we're going to superset them. Okay, we're going to do a set. They're going to do a set, and we're going to do a set, and you're going to find out one of those grips is stronger than the other grip. Then that's the grip we're going to dump extra volume on. We're going to keep pushing it because we got to have the ability, even though we're always going sideways, okay, we're always headed towards this point, but the force we have to apply is sometimes beyond that because they're pushing us, and sometimes we're pulling it because they're pulling us, but we're still trying to hit that same spot. So you got to train all angles of your arm. You got to have way more muscle development and coordination development than what a bench presser does, or even somebody who's just a professional curler, because that bar is going up at the same plane every time. We don't have that ability. And that ability to be strong, we all know people who are just wicked freaking freaks in their one move. Kenny Hughes from California is one of them. Corey Miller is another. They hit that groove and they're wicked fast. You pull them out of it a little bit, and all of a sudden they become mortal. But we all know those country boys who just seem strong no matter where you put them, right? They're like a rusty bolt no matter where you're pulling on them. That's what we got to develop. We got to develop that ability to be strong on the whole aspect of those angles. Yes, sir.
How many times a week do you hit the JM presses
I do them every time I train my arms, and I train arm wrestling specific stuff 3 days a week.
Okay.
In the mornings, it's all full range movement stuff. So it's a max. We're going to talk about max day, speed day, volume day. Evenings are isometrics or plyometrics, but I do my JM presses at the end of all of what would normally be termed like side pressure training, even though it's mostly back pressure stuff.
Okay.
So all of my top roll hooking days. So there's a maximum effort day, a speed day, and a volume day. I end all of it with JM presses.
Okay.
Okay.
What's your rep range on it?
I'm still working that out. Okay. I started with 15. I went down to 8. I'm back up to about 25 now. I'm working through an elbow thing on my left. My left elbow hurts, and the super heavy day, when I was doing 8 reps, it was a weight that I could only do 4 times. And then I slowly built up to 8, but I'm not sure it's actually taking care of this left elbow anymore. So now I'm doing like, I dropped all the weight off, and now I'm doing like sets of 25. So it's not a science. You got to pick and choose where it's at. Now I've seen powerlifters do 315 for sets of 5, and I've seen them do like sets of 100. So
Now, do you pause when you do it, or do you just rep? Do you just try to get
the weight's high enough that I can't. The weight's high enough. I'm not blasting it out. For me, the weight's high enough that it's an effort.
Okay.
Whether it's 25 or whether it's 8, you know, it's heavy enough that it's controlled.
And how many? So you go heavy. You shoot to get heavy lifts with those.
I try to hit heavy all the time, mostly to save time.
Okay.
Because to me, I'd rather do 3 sets of 8 rather than 3 sets of 20, just because, you know, I got about 90 minutes to be in the gym. You know, 30 minutes of that is warming up. You got to get your workout. You got to get the hell out. I know there are people who preach they're in the gym 3 and 4 hours at a day. There's some very accomplished people who do shit like that, but to me, that just fucking nuts, man. I cannot imagine spending 3 hours in a gym lifting weights. I can't think of anything I could do for 3 hours. It'd be just as good at the end of 3 hours as I was at the front end, you know? So, I mean, I hit a max effort in about 8 or 9 sets. I have no idea what someone would do for 4 hours.
So is that like, what, 20 minutes? 25 minutes?
No, because I might have 7 or 8 minutes between sets.
Oh, okay.
You know?
Yeah.
Probably get more, it's probably more effective because there's no extra rest.
There's different theories. I'm telling you my theory and my strategy, and other people tell you other stuff. Okay? So yeah, to me, an hour in the gym, but since I get up at 4 o'clock, it takes me 30 minutes or so to get rolling. If I train after work, you know, I can drink coffee on the way home. I can go down there and I could be lifting heavy almost immediately because I'm warmed up and stuff. So my evening work, yeah. I always train 7. I always get at least 7 workouts in a week. It's usually somewhere between 10 and 14 on how many evening workouts I do. Okay, the last couple of months I'm training about 10 times a week now, and 5 of them are for arm wrestling, and the other ones are since I'm obviously a super heavyweight, I'm putting on mass, so now I'm doing squatting and benching, you know? To put the fear of Todd in all those other people. You know?
So if you know you got a tournament, do you train more or less when it comes time for that tournament?
When
Do you slow down or do you keep it the same?
I speed up, and I've changed. All right, I've never been a 2 or 3 week off before a tournament guy. I've always been a 3 or 4 day off. Because usually if there's a tournament and if you got to cut weight, usually cutting weight for me is a 10-day process. So I got almost 10 days where I don't do any training. But in the super heavyweight class, I might, between travel, weigh-in, getting there and stuff, there's 3 or 4 days that I don't train before the tournament starts anyways. That's about all I do. I've I've been toying with the idea of, instead of tapering down like the endurance athletes do, of actually ramping it up. I almost wondered if it would be better to, for instance, let's just say barbell curls. Let's say my max barbell curl is 100 pounds. I've often wondered was, if I got a tournament on Saturday, should I not try to do like 120 pounds or something, you know, as my last workout? Really stress it, and then I got the 4 days where I'm really not doing anything, and I'm eating and I'm sleeping well, and you know, so I feel, you know, because going into a tournament, the mental games screw with you, right? Because you've been training, it's the work you did months ago that determines how you're going to do in that tournament. And the last thing you want to do is be driving to a tournament going, wow, wish I would have worked harder, wish I would have tried my speed, wish I would have worked on this grip, wish I wouldn't have listened to what Travis said, and wish I would. So training really hard does clear a lot of that stuff out of your head. Right?
Probably allows you to focus more.
Yeah. When you're slacking off or resting and stuff, that's when to me, that's when my mind starts giving me self-doubts on whether or not I've actually worked hard enough, or whether I earned it, or whether I deserved it, you know, that kind of stuff. So, if anything you don't train for about 2 to 3 weeks will drop off about 10%. It's more or less. So taking this 3 weeks and not doing anything, the people who do that, and there are people who do that and are very successful, but they are so much crazy stronger than the rest of us that they can give up 10 or 15% and still be superstars. But they weren't going to win the Olympics that way. You know what I'm saying? Because those people who actually set quantifiable records, like in weightlifting and shit, don't do that. You know. Any other questions?
Are you down to something pretty consistent these last few years as far as your preparation? Just because, like, over the years I've like experimented with different things, as far as like, sometimes I'll go to a tournament and I'll feel like an absolute freak, and then other times I'll go to a tournament and I'll be like, whoa, what did I do differently that time around? Like, was my water cut bad? Or like, have you noticed over the years where sometimes you feel mega strong compared to...
If it's weight cutting, now when I was cutting weight, that I had down to a science. But I'm going to tell you, cutting weight never got easier. Now I was going to cover cutting weight at the end, but I would cut about 10% of my body weight, which was always a stretch. So for me, it was always 20 pounds in 10 days. But mostly what it was in the first 9 days, I'd lose about 5 pounds or so, and then I always tried to hit 12 to 15 pounds in the sauna the night before. I wanted to maximize the weight cut prior to weigh-in. So I didn't want to make weight any earlier than weigh-ins, get off the scale and start putting it back on. That actually got harder for me every year, but that I actually had written down. And to the point where when I was in the sauna, I was weighing myself every hour. So I knew, because every time you jump in that sauna, you come back, wow, I lost 7 pounds. Oh, fuck, I'm going to be done in 4 hours. Yeah, the last 12 hours, you don't lose shit. You know, it takes 12 hours to lose that last pound, you know? Because I'm almost convinced you come out of the sauna at the end when you're dry, you weigh yourself, you get back into the sauna, you're cold. I think I started soaking that steam back into my body, and then I had to get hot, get that headache, and lose it again. That was killer. Now that I don't have to cut weight anymore, the training is mostly, and the we gotta talk about the WIL anyways. Since the WIL went to super matches, my training and my preparation is completely different, because I will train and I will approach 6 rounds with one man completely different than I would have approached 6 rounds with 6 different people. Because whether it's a tournament or a super match, it's still about 6 matches to win. It's 6 matches to win if you go undefeated in a tournament. But in the WAL, you got to win 3, but you might have multiple restarts. But it's about the same amount of pulling. But a tournament, it's 6, maybe 7 matches over what seems like 8 or 9 hours. For crying out loud, they got a break in the middle of it, and a tournament's completely different. A tournament, I would certainly emphasize table training versus weightlifting. But I've been arm wrestling for about 20 years now, so my preparation, as soon as I know who I'm going to arm wrestle, I build a YouTube channel of all their matches. I watch it while I'm training. I develop a game plan. I talk it over with 2 or 3 people that I trust. I will practice with those people once or twice. And I'm usually pretty confident in my preparation weeks before I go in there. You know, and that's kind of down to a science now. But I'm at the point where when you're a beginner, you're worried about all kinds of crazy shit. When you become an old guy, you don't ever want to lose, but you don't ever want to get crazy with it. So I'm still having fun. I'm not completely suicidal about shit anymore, you know. But but I'm at the point now. I got a pretty good idea whether I'm going to win or lose weeks before that match happens. I go, I should be able to win this. I should be able to win this match 9 times out of 10, or yeah, I got 1 or 2 chances out of 10 to win this match. So I'm only going to train those 1 or 2 chances. You know?
I got a question.
Yes, he had his hand first, but and it's his house and it's his seminar.
I actually got a question from Tom Nelson for you. He asked.
He loves me, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No.
His question is, how can you get that much stronger in a third match over the first match without getting pumped up? He always is 10 times stronger in the third match than the first. I would say no man could beat him if he was that strong in the first match as he is in the third.
Isometrics. Isometrics train that. We're going to talk about force, power, and work capacity later. But to be stronger, deeper into the matches, you gotta have that work capacity. All right, and you gotta, and too many of us train aerobically because we train like the bodybuilders do. Isometrics is maximum force, it's anaerobic, and it teaches your body to recover from that. So you gotta, especially you people have to cut weight, you want to train a lot of isometrics. It's a way to do maximum effort work without putting on a lot of mass. And then your body will condition. You know, too many of us, and we'll get into practice philosophies later, but we all go to practice and we grind and we grind and we grind and we grind, and then you go to a tournament. So you've been practicing for 6 months and you've been practicing these 20 and 30 second long matches. You go to a tournament, and how many 30-second matches do you have in the tournament? There's like 1 in the whole tournament, right? Nobody has 1, right? It's all flash, flash, flash. Isometrics, you can adjust your isometric time, whether it's a 2-second, 5-second, or a 20-second isometric. Then you get used to it, you know. But you gotta, and we'll talk about whether you're practicing for capacity or just hanging out and having a good time, or whether you're actually specifically sparring and training for an actual match coming up. But the isometrics are definitely something that we all know about them. None of us do them, you know, because they're boring. They're boring as hell. But you gotta do them. But
You say you do extensive research on the guys that you're going to have matches with. Do you ever have a match where you don't have that information or that thing at your disposal that you have to go in kind of blind?
yes, and more often than not,
And what do you do?
I underestimate them. But if you never heard of the guy,
Have you ever been pleasant, surprised by an unknown?
Oh, I got the first WAL tournament in Vegas. I had, I don't know what match it was, first or second match. Kid's name was Michael Bianchi. Never heard of him, but I knew he came out of South Carolina. So I knew he trained with good people. And I didn't have any of my South Carolina people to ask about, but I go, I never heard of him. And had he been good, Matt or Chad or Corey would have told me about him, you know? And I go, what?
Damn.
First match, I moved this guy. You know? But it happened that one time. It didn't happen, you know.
Yeah.
I still ended up winning that tournament, but no, people like that will catch you. Even people you know will surprise you. Because, I mean, as hard as you're training, other people are training too. So I get surprised by people I know all the time. They just, you know, and we'll cover it. Not only are you getting stronger, but you learn that small adjustments to your top roll or your hook can completely change the outcome of the match.
Keep it simple.
You know, so you have to you got to be on the lookout for that. And we're really not that far apart. You beginners, you feel, I'm going to tell you, you go to practice, you get beat up, you go to a tournament, you go out in 2 or you go out in 4, and you just think that you're so far away from other people. Small changes, small adjustments, all of a sudden these people feel mortal. And I'm telling you, there is not a lot of difference in the power between the super heavyweights and the middleweights. Because I pull both those classes repeatedly, and I pull very good people in both of those classes. And there are a lot of middleweights that can beat a lot of super heavyweights. I mean, it's more of a combat sport than it is a weightlifting sport, you know. But it's different. Geometry and stuff weighs in.
I've had the guy Tom Simcoe Nitro just show you one move, and you know you grip him one way your way, and then you grip him with the one tweak, and increase your strength by 20% just with the one move and no exercise.
You gotta make sure they don't know what's coming. Anything else? Topics we gotta cover. Surely you guys got other questions. You got a question? Yes.
Hand grippers.
Yes.
How do you train with them?
I wouldn't. I have that whole set. I wouldn't use them at all. For the simple reason that, do you have them?
I did, yeah.
When you're arm wrestling, you almost always want your hand curled.
Right.
To max out those grippers, you're almost always strong with your hand pulled back. And in the end, you're not so, come on up here a second.
Okay.
When you're arm wrestling, right, that isn't what a good arm wrestler, what you'll feel from a good arm wrestler. What you'll feel from a good arm wrestler is his fingers flat like that, you know?
Yeah.
Those grippers, to minimize that gripper, if you squeeze my hand like it's a gripper really, really hard, you just open yourself up to being top roll, right? What you need is what I believe, we're gonna talk to terminology, like I believe this is what they call by cupping, is this relaxed finger curling stuff.
That's how you cut?
I believe cupping is this. We gotta talk about it.
Okay, we cut the same.
For the purposes of this talk, cupping is fingers fairly relaxed, pulling back. Rising is just this, pronating and supinating. Okay?
Yeah.
If those aren't the correct terms, you can Google them later and correct me later. But when I say cupping, this is what I mean. So if he's top rolling, I'm going to counteract his top roll by cupping. And cupping is just making my fingers basically into a hook and pulling back. Okay?
Back pressure. I kind of like just
Yeah.
popping your wrist.
Well, back pressure can be up like this, or can be. Cupping is a hand thing. It's not an arm motion thing. So if he's top rolling out like Travis would, cupping is just me. Basically, these fingers are in a hook. Okay. Rising can either be with your knuckles down or up, but it's that. Pronating and supinating. And for the purposes of tonight, cupping is the most important thing you train. And then some kind of side pressure with your arm, and then rising. If you're an inside puller or a shorter person. If you're a taller guy or a top roller, then you train your rising, your side, and then your cupping in that order. All right.
This type of seminar, we're going to talk about whatever y'all want to talk about. We can talk about setup, prep, training, how this guy's going to beat everybody with like a year. What exactly are y'all expecting from this thing? What do y'all want to talk about most? I need something, guys.
Technique.
Go, Corey.
So this one's a lot different than the last one because the last one I was at had hardly any like actual arm wrestlers. Like there were a bunch of new people. So obviously
Herman could be teaching the technique right now.
All right.
So you do Braden there? I'm just kidding, Braden. Just kidding. Yeah. All right. What do you want to talk about? Come here. All right, so how does everyone approach arm wrestling? Do y'all approach this as a hobby, or do y'all approach this as a sport, or something you want to do forever, you want to be the best in the world at? How do you approach it?
Sport.
Everybody is in this thing to be the man, right? All right, so y'all want to talk about nutrition? Y'all want to talk about training first? You said technique, but what are we going to talk about technique? I need some help here.
Talk about head.
All right,
I gotta get back.
Talk about from the beginning, you walk up to the table, what is your setup like? And then
I'm
what
going to tell you
happens
everything
when
that I
they say
do.
ready to go?
What's most important to me? Most important thing to me is cup. And people don't think I cup, but I cup immediately every time I start a match. The first thing I'm doing is fingertips and elbows, and then I'm going to pull my thumb through my fingers to pronate. Now I have a high knuckle always. This knuckle's high. I don't try to cover your own knuckle. When you set up, how do you set up your hands? Or how do you keep from covering your opponent's knuckle? Come here real quick. Show me how you're going to set up and get a high hand without covering my knuckle. That's very good. So many people, and I do very similar things. I'm going to take my hand here, go and get it, and I'm just going to kick my hand down. So see how you just went over my, I wasn't trying to hide my knuckle, I'm just trying to stay off your knuckle and keep my knuckle high. And all from engaging my riser. Just kicking my hand down and engaging my riser. How did your move start? Your main move? This is the key to everything. He's protecting the height of his hand. He has a high riser. His wrist is strong. Now, do you apply any fingertip? Not really. You don't apply much fingertip?
Lover, when you talk, point your face out this way. So
All right.
people can hear your voice.
Well, I mean, he can't see anything because you're good though? All right.
I don't know if you see on
Gotcha. All right. So, now tell me why you're not using fingertips.
I don't want to squeeze and peel my own fingers off.
So you squeeze versus clamping. All right. So how do you apply your cup? So it is still fingertips. It's just fingertips with explosion.
Gotcha.
All right. So everything that I do, he's doing probably better right now. Higher knuckle, protected wrist, and on go, he's going to clasp my wrist and shoot straight back. The key, in my opinion, arm wrestling is a tug of war. Now there are tons of different ways to arm wrestle, but I want to control hand peg to hand peg center. As soon as they say go, I want to get you to my side of the table. At some point, it doesn't even have to be much. I just need to make sure that the match is somewhere near my side. And you do that through this strong control. It doesn't matter how strong this is if this one won't support it. Does that make sense? I mean, I know everybody knows this. It's what's so hard talking to experienced arm wrestlers. So that's why this is really weird.
So I take a much different approach. A lot of people will start with their hand either dumped like this for a top roll or up like this for height. I'm a person that likes to be completely like a post. I want to be just as solid and straight as I can be, and I do fight with a lot of tip pressure, and I don't necessarily worry about height. I worry about where I want to be palm to palm right here as good as possible and tucked inside of my chest. Tucked as far inside of my chest as I can. That way I start out with like a wedge from go. Instead of starting, I see people start out like this, and it drives me crazy because, I mean, if somebody beats you on the go, how do you recover from that without having a little bit of angle to resist? I like to try to block with my shoulder the best I can. And I'm not necessarily an explosive arm wrestler at all. My main focus is making the match stop and then trying to turn my shoulder and turn them as palm up as I possibly can and then work towards this end of the mat. So, I mean, it's just what works for me. Everybody's going to be so much different, but it's been really efficient for how I'm built. I don't have a big bench press right now, but usually I give a lot of credit to my big bench because I can take and just shove pec deck sideways and try to kick somebody's arm out past their shoulder. And then once I do that and get turned, I mean, you have to be a Dave Chafee type of strength or a Michael to come back from that spot. So it's really, obviously if I'm a lot stronger than somebody, the objective is just to take them to the pad on go. But if I know I'm pulling a Wayne or a Herman my move is not sideways, it is towards you and then working towards a win.
So stop the match.
Correct.
And then adjust for the pin.
I never want to lose my hand. That's the most important thing to me, because I know that I'll never get back to where I need to be from here. So because I
Once your wrist is locked, you're never going to gain your wrist back. Or after your wrist is cracked.
I think it's much harder to accomplish what I'm trying to do as a power move without a hand. So because I pull Michael all the time, I have to resist a lot of up rotation pressure. So I just fight there a lot anyway. So whether I'm trying to or not, I've always got a lot of up rotation lock. Because if I don't, he'll just spin me over.
So in the setup, how do you guys handle? How are you handling loading versus hitting? And
we don't really
like if someone else is loading, what I do,
or do you load?
Okay, so my setup is just like this. Like this is it. There's nothing tight, and I want to hit as fast as I can. So let's say Devin, for instance, is coming up. If we're doing a WAL start, you can't do all this, right? So it's just when we close your thumb. Close your hand. The second they close my hand, I'm going to be firing as hard as I can this way, right? To the rear of the pad. So I do like a load if I'm in the strap. I don't like to load without the strap. Because if I load with the strap real tight and I'm setting everything straight, then I feel like you can almost intimidate your opponent because your load's so like intimidating. You can intimidate them because the shit's intimidating. How do you do it? What do you do? You just loose? Yeah, I like loose. Arm wrestling has evolved so much. I mean, I'm in my 31st year doing this. AAA, they used to just, like, I'm just sitting with Rodney's talking about loading your lap. They used to load like crazy. It's not my responsibility to match your load. I just have to, the rules say we have to start to set the table. So if you want to apply all this crazy pressure, like Devin or whoever I want to pull, I'm just going to not fight them. We're probably going to do a WAL setup over in Dubai, just so we don't have to do all this dumb shit.
Gotcha. So if someone's loading my hand, and I have a problem with it,
I'm just like,
I just need to let it go.
And I'm like, dude, you got to be in the center table. I don't know what y'all. And I mean, I will play not necessarily dumb. I'll just be like, listen, I'm not starting to the match at the center table. You can't foul me. You got to foul him. He's the one that's unwilling to get the grip. The grip says center of the table. So when you calm the fuck down and get in the center table, we can say go. You know, because so many. It's instinctive as a man to want to resist. Someone's fucking with you. That's Devin's entire thing. I mean, I know we watched him versus Wagner Bortolato. Dude, he screwed Wagner so bad. I mean, he got up there and he's jockeying the day before getting in the pool. Devin tried to touch my hand in 2018 at 406 for 3 days. He's like, come on, man, let me feel it. I'm like, you'll feel it in a few days. I was so in his head because he didn't get what he wanted. He didn't get to mess with me because I wasn't going to grab him. So the same thing happens when you get up here to set up a match. You know, you're a lot of testosterone going, you're hyped up. Don't do that shit. Save all that for go.
And so when you're in the straps, do you still prefer to load, or do you still want to go loose in the straps?
Okay, so I will, if you're attacking, I will loose. I will have a loose setup if you're attacking.
Okay.
Because I'm gonna do more of a defensive style match, which means I'm loose, you're low, wham! And I'm just gonna try to catch boom. Now, if I feel that you're more gonna try to arm wrestle me versus try to flash me, I will not have a crazy hard load, but I'll clamp my hand much harder.
Gotcha.
Like it won't be a squeeze, it'll just be my hands really, like I won't be fighting for height. I'll be spreading here so that when the match goes, that climb that you're trying to do, you won't be able to do because my hand won't open. But if I'm here, if I'm floating, and you just boom, get into my hand, then I'm already here. I'm having to fight from this position. But if I can get my hand far enough around the back of your hand and a tight strap, I don't have to do anything except try to crack my move and just don't let my hand go and wait for you to make a mistake. But I'm always going to be somewhat tight here, but everything else is going to be loose. Like you're never going to see me just, like I'm not setting up like that. I mean, some people do it, it works for some people, but the problem that I see with a lot of practices and a lot of training sessions is people will try to do shit that they will never get in a tournament. Like, why would you do this crazy hard load if you drag the dude 2 inches your side of the table and you're never going to get that? Or come up to the table like this and like, okay, you're a fucking phenomenal practice puller, but you will never win a match because you're never getting that shit because you're only good there. So much of my arm wrestling wasn't because I wanted to be, I know I'm not the strongest guy in all the moves, but I know those guys that are really strong only train to be strong from here to here. Most of the world-class elite, Dave Chafee, Levon, Pushkar, Plinkov, those guys train to be strong from here to here. That's it. So if you take them to here, they don't have access to their power anymore. Everything they've done is this is why there's a flaw in Devin Laird's training and preparation. And you guys have all on camera, everything. Y'all tell me what you think about this. Devin is doing all this multi-spinner shit, but he's doing it from here. Like he's grabbing a hook and just. So if he was doing it from here, then it would translate. Because that's what we have to start. He's doing it from here. All that tells me is once he gets there, he's going to be really strong. I'm just not going to let him get there. I mean, if all your training is from a position that you won't give access to in a match, it's irrelevant training. So a lot of people spend a lot of time doing what everybody else is doing. When all you have to do is find out how do you arm wrestle and what best translates to making you a better arm wrestler of how you arm wrestle. So what I do, now I don't have a pulley system, but I love the arm attachment. I have an Amazon link. I don't know what it is. Monster Factory, check it out on Amazon. You can order these. So have you grabbed one of these yet?
No, I haven't.
Okay, so the thing about an arm attachment, most cable pulley systems are designed for inside arm wrestling, right? Like imagine this being steel and this is a handle and it's just gonna spin like that, right? So that's how we've always trained. Well, if you're a top roller, training this way is not really gonna help you a whole lot. I mean, it's gonna build your side pressure, but it's not gonna directly mimic your arm wrestling. So if you stuck your hand in here, and it's a regular system, it's just a hook system, right? You're still just gonna hook and spin it. But the second you do this, because I have this cheap Amazon, Walmart, nylon plastic, take your hand back out, you will spin it like this. And now your pressure is just like your top roll. Does that feel how you arm wrestle? That's pretty interesting. That's the shit. I'm just telling you. If you never, as a top roller, get to train this way. Because every handle is a spinner or a cupping handle. And that's great to develop your cup. But I choose to approach arm wrestling like a job, right? I just choose to go to work every day. Meaning, a mechanic can turn this shit out of some wrenches. A carpenter beat the shit out of a hammer. I want to top roll every day of my life. So if you're a mechanic, people are like, well, should I train every day? Absolutely. Of course you should train every day, exactly what you're gonna do. You don't have to train chest every day, back every day, but you train this shit every day. A mechanic did not go to work today because he went to work yesterday. Oh, I'm taking off today because I went to work yesterday. No, you're working. This is a job. Treat this shit like a job, you know? So, if right there, this is how all my training. So when I say I'm gonna cup here. Now, is there a lot of resistance? No, but my mind tells me to cup. My feet, this is a thumb. If y'all see that, that's a thumb, right?
Yep.
So when I reach into this dude's thumb, that means this is the back of his hand. So if the first thing I do is this, I am prepared that every single time when I grip a hand, I'm gonna do this. Because it's natural, it's instinctive. So I cup, and then I pull through the thumb with pronation. Wham, wham. So what do you think's gonna happen when I get on a table? That's what I'm gonna do, because that's the shit I did every day of my life.
Second nature.
I mean, that's the only way I know how to teach arm wrestling. It has to be, you gotta be passionate about it, but consistency, daily, resistance makes you good at arm wrestling.
I've got a question. How do you handle a dump wrist at top roll? Like, what's your approach?
Okay, so all outside arm wrestling against me, I pull exactly the same way.
Okay.
And it's cup and pronate, right? Because if you're dumping your wrist, okay, so a lot of people think Vitaly Lelettin is this huge threat to me. And he is a dangerous individual. But he's gonna have to front his hand like Matt Mass does, right? So this, in my opinion, protects you from being hooked. It does shit for you against a top roll, especially a posting top roll. If we're outside arm wrestling and you're dumping your hand to me, yes, you might be able to get this move, but all I need to do is get that. I just got to flatten that. So my approach may not be the approach that you, but it's exactly the same against all outside arm wrestling. It's do what I do and do it better than what they're doing. Inside arm wrestling, is more just as much pronation as possible to keep you from turning my palm up.
Correct.
If someone's trying to hook me, I just don't let my wrist go that way. I just make sure that I'm protecting that the whole time.
And you give. You'll do like what you'll give a little bit, and as soon as he it's like because you're chasing
because he pulls me so much.
It's going to rotate you out because you don't realize how you're being extended at the same time.
Gotcha.
Because you'll run to the front of the pad because you think you're getting him hooked, and then before you know it, you run out of pad, and he's still moving backwards, and then your hands flat.
So tell me how you would do a fronting dumping top rope. Like how do you pull it? Because you were asking me that.
I typically have to go high as possible. Like I have no like true hooking skills.
Yeah.
So I can't go that route.
Oh, so you're saying you would do something different? Like you might not top roll the top roller.
No, I'm saying that's all I have.
Okay,
Because
yeah.
I cannot. I don't have this.
Yeah.
Corey has this.
Yeah.
I know.
I don't have it anymore because this is it. Like I can't supinate any further than this. So my ability to boom, it's not there because I don't have the ability to do that anymore. So that strength is I don't possess it.
Gotcha.
So when people, let's say you're an inside arm wrestler, how many guys here are hookers? Like straight up, dirty little hookers, right? All right. So if you're a hooker who arm wrestles a top roller, how do you attack that top roller? How do you pull it? Same thing. If you're arm wrestling a hook, this is how I arm wrestle. I top roll. If I'm a hooker and I'm pulling a top roller, I top roll them to get to the strap. I don't hook you to get to the strap. I'm gonna give you the best example that this has ever existed in the history of arm wrestling. Who was the most dominant 100 kg arm wrestler in the last decade?
Brezink still?
Arsen Lillian.
Okay.
I like him. Bad dude. Bad dude. And so it actually goes back 13, 14 years. What? Okay, cool. Yeah. This is good shit. So Arsen Lillian ran through everybody like children. Now, who is the guy that figured out the puzzle? Crosby. The ultimate inside arm wrestler who couldn't arm wrestle. He gets flashed every time he arm wrestling. How did he beat him? No, he fucking top rolled him to get to the strap. He no longer chased this dude because there was nothing you could chase. You're getting pinned by the time you get into that. You can't even get into the match and you're flashed. So he's like, screw that shit. Post like crazy. So now we're in a strap. Now, do you think once he's in the strap, he immediately commits to the hook?
Back pressure.
No, he stops all this offensive move with countered back pressure. And then he sinks his hook. So you top rollers. Dude, don't be the guy who is chasing the other dude. If you're this guy who is diesel here, but you end up here, this is not where you want to arm wrestle. You end up like this. You don't want this, trust me. This is horrible. So don't be the guy that has to have this. Be the guy that can get it from here, then it's tied to it. I mean, think about what's that hook? If I'm here and I do this and I get compromised, arm wrestling at its core is a tug of war. Everybody thought it was side pressure. We have rules and we have pads and we can move. I have to pull you to me. There is no other way around this. It is a tug of war. So why would my first move be give you everything? If we're out of rope, and I'm like, hey, yo, I mean, that's just dumb. I mean, I'm never gonna do that. Now, Eastern Europeans have it figured out. They have it, there's an American hook, in my opinion. There's an Eastern European hook. An American hook, we're like, we're so strong, come here, I'm gonna get you. And Eastern Europeans like, my wrist and hand are ridiculous, I'm gonna drag you into a hook. Because they don't give up the center. So if you don't have that ridiculous wrist since birth, and you've been training, because their whole team has been training since they were 1, and you can't do this, then do this, slip, get to the strap, raise as much back as you can, and then sink it. Once you get this control, then you sink your hook. Does that make sense? It's so much different than the approach that most people take. Because they just think, I'm gonna do more wrist curls. The wrist curl doesn't matter if I gave you everything. You gotta be like twice as strong as this dude to take that shit back.
Yeah.
Why not just be equally as strong and stop the match with back pressure? And then engage your move. That's just my take. All I know is Herman's like, yeah, that's good. So if Herman says it's right, this shit is gold. Go ahead.
I think the thing that has benefited me the most, being new in my 4 years, is having the ability to find somebody like Michael, Herman, Rita. I mean, people know. So if you can find somebody to chase all the time, somebody that's gonna just beat you like a dog every time you pull them, and have the ability to not have a big ego and can wear that like every loss is a step, closer, a step closer. In this sport, I thought he saw it. But it's a very humbling sport. You're never going to be the best from day one. Very few people are going to be the best in a decade. But if you can take and learn from every loss and go after everybody that you know is better than you all the time, like not just show up to beat the guys that you know you can beat, like skip the tournaments that you know are going to be stacked, or skip the practices where you know there's going to be 10 people that can beat you at. Get the hell out of here. It ain't stacked. What are you talking about? I'm just kidding.
He said it ain't stacked.
I think that's the thing that has helped me the most. I've probably lost 10,000 matches to this guy. I've won one late in a practice, one. Pinned this guy one time.
He gets so mad at every other practice I go to and everyone else beats him. He goes, how do you let everybody else beat you, Chief? Well, it's because it's normally just me and him.
Yeah.
If it's a big practice, I've arm wrestled everyone, and everyone beats me. If it's just me and Corey, I will win most of the day, But this kid has helped me. When he's saying go find someone to chase, go find someone who is committed. Find someone who will show up. And you guys just hold each other accountable and be consistent with this shit. That's the key. I mean, I was just talking to Herman about how impressed I am with Ryan Bowen. He immediately was like, that bomb. But it's because he's consistent. The kid loves arm wrestling, and as I'm sure you guys do as well. But it's that daily consistency that makes you a champion. It's not, I have a really hard time with this. I like Jerry Carteret a lot. But I cannot let Jerry Carteret beat me if he's a part-time arm wrestler. If he's like, well, I'm going to train for 6 weeks. I'll be ready. Fuck, I train 52 weeks a year. If you beat me with 6 weeks of training, I need to switch. I can't do this shit anymore because I do this all the time. And that's the approach I feel people should take. Because, we were talking about genetics a while ago. Can anyone be great? No, there's certain parameters that you might need to possess to be a world class at anything. But I think the main one is belief and mental toughness. You cannot be a bitch. You got to work. Every single day you will be tested mentally, whether it's in your workout, whether it's with your nutrition. I choose to treat myself like a professional athlete. Like, I'm not a guy who's genetically gifted as far as aesthetics. If I eat what I want, I'm a 300-pound hay-hauling country boy. That's me. If I want to perform at an elite level, I have to treat myself like an elite athlete. You buy a $100,000 car, I don't know how many of us can do it, but if you did buy a $100,000 car, would you put regular loaded gas in it? No, you're putting premium fuel. Why would you treat your body any less? Primal beef jerky / monster. Beat on primal.com, that's what it was. But yeah, so seriously, that's my approach. I mean, it's everything that we do, it starts with a strong mind. And then it's just goals. And you don't set the dumbass goal out here. You set this goal. And then you reach it and you set that goal. And that consistency is what's going to make you great. Will you be the best in the world? No, because that should not be the goal. The goal should be the best you can be. I just think the best me beats the best everybody else. You know what I'm saying? That's my belief. And if you have that belief, that's it. Okay, so this is a cheap ass gripper. I don't do grippers in traditional sense, meaning I can't squeeze shit. I can barely close a 2.5 probably, and I may not. I know I can close a 2, but this little cheap Walmart gripper, I don't even know where I got it. Somewhere gripper. This is nothing, but if you turn it this way, it gets work. So I just do this just like I do everything else. And you just crank like this. You'll be able to do it easy, but you'll see the difference, obviously. Just crank that wrist.
No, that's ridiculous.
You're joking, aren't you? Now, but I mean,
serious. Like,
it's a big
way
difference, right?
Yeah,
So
it's way
He
easier.
doesn't need to do that anyway.
they're all competing. Here, let's arm wrestle. No, I got money on Wayne. So, I mean, this is it right here.
You would try to frustrate
I
him
don't
with
want
foot
to
rests
do
again?
anyone who's ever closed a heavy gripper because your ego's like, hey, I think I can try it. Every single person who's ever been successful with a gripper did like this, and their wrist went back. I don't know any arm wrestler that chooses to be in this position. Nobody say my name. Because I may get there every once in a while, but I don't want that. I want this forward. So I'm never gonna try to squeeze stuff. I'm gonna try to clamp stuff. Or I'm gonna try to, that pinky, right? So boom, turn it, do sets of 50. And it doesn't have to be this one. It can be any little weak ass gripper. But I'm telling you, this stuff works. It'll build your tendons, your ligaments. I do this stuff all the time. So the art arm is my favorite handle, specifically because of how it felt. Did it feel good to you though?
That was pretty interesting.
I mean, it really is. Like, and you know, I have so many people online who'll see me doing. They're like, "Well, you're not activating your pronator." I'm like, "Well, arm wrestling. Let's find out." But you know, seriously, does that mimic how you arm wrestle? And it doesn't. You don't have to have this pronation because honestly, this doesn't mimic my arm wrestling that much. In my opinion, it's great for pronation, but this mimics exactly how I'm going to arm wrestle, right? So why would I not do that? There's so many things that are performed off the table because traditionally, that's how we did wrist curls. This is how we did wrist curls. This is how we did wrist curls. I'm never going to be in that position arm wrestling. I would rather do a wrist curl like this because this is how I'm going to arm wrestle. You know, I try to do everything I can from something that would easily translate to the table. And I'm lazy. So I want to do the least amount of work as possible to get the best result. Corey's agreeing with that. So, this is a monster curl bar. I honestly don't use this one as much as I use my original one. That's just a piece of pipe that's welded. This one has spinning handles on it. But the key is, how important is hammer curling in arm wrestling? Do you think?
I think it's pretty important.
I think hammer curl is extremely important. So, is it important to do a really heavy hammer curl if you haven't rested on a bar or a lip that really is just working this, or would it make sense to work your hand at the same time? Remember, I'm lazy, so I'm gonna try to get the most stuff done at once. So now I have a hammer curl bar that I can only curl what I can hold on to. You know, there's nothing to keep this thing from coming out of my hand. So I grab a bar like this, load this sucker up with weight, crank my wrist, and my riser's engaged. I'm cupping. And I'm just getting it. Now I'm not doing these bodybuilding full range because I'm not going to arm wrestle from there. I'm doing pumping reps, right? But that motion right there is now I'm working my hand, my wrist, my hand, my bicep, my pronator. Buy one of these, armassassinstrengthshop.com, or build one. But this stuff works. You're going to have shit that's going to happen. And you're going to either be mentally weak or you're going to be mentally tough. You're going to either get through it or you're going to let it break you. I just choose not to let anything break me. And if you will take that approach in this sport and do the consistent work, you can be the best you.
I mean, look at Herman. Herman is consistently trained through losing his house.
Yeah, that's pretty. That's
the thing.
That's
man.
pretty mentally tough.
A weaker person would have said, "I do not have time for this." They would have stepped back. They would have backslid. They wouldn't be somebody that could even be talked about to be one of the best. And that's the kind of stuff that is the reason, you know.
Obviously, you've had a lot of injuries, Michael. Mine is starting to stack up. My arm's starting to lock and do all kinds of weird stuff. I think I've heard you say that if you could go back in time and you didn't have those injuries or you handled them better and had range of motion, you'd be an even better arm wrestler. So I guess the question is what should the new guys be doing to maybe prevent some of these injuries or address them, so that, you know, they don't end up with too short of a range of motion, or, you know.
I'm going to tell you how I would have prevented. It would have been a very hard thing for me to do, but I would have let some matches go. I would have gave up. And that's what happened to me, is I wouldn't quit. I was like, screw it. I'm in this horrible position, but you're not going to pin me, so I'm going to pin you. And because of that, and I didn't have health insurance for about 20 years. So me and Craig Touye were really good friends. We started off together, and Craig would like, well, I got this happening, I got that happening. Yeah, I bet I got that too, but I don't have any insurance, so I'm not going to find out. I'm just going to keep working out. So that's all I did. I got injured, and I didn't go check on it. I just trained through it, and because of that, I have an arm that doesn't move very well. But the best way to prevent those injuries, and I'm telling you, another good reason is I've been doing this a very long time, right? There was not as much information out there when I started. You figured a lot of this shit out on your own. Or you went to a tournament because of a flyer you got in the mail, or you drove to, I mean, we didn't know what we know now. With the internet, there's so much information. You can train smarter. I just trained kind of stupid a lot. Like, I'm hurting. I'm gonna keep training, you know? I mean, I probably should have been a little bit more wiser. There's ultrasounds, there's treatments, there's therapy. I'm a believer of ice therapy. I'm a believer of cryotherapy. I'm a believer of anything that is rejuvenative medicine. I'm a huge believer in that. I think athletes can be better now than they've ever been in history. I think our best athletes can exist in this time because of the advances in science. And we're just, don't be stupid. So my advice to younger me would be, don't do that dumb shit. For one, I would have trained my hand and wrist. I would have, see all the stuff I'm talking about, don't shoot forward. I shot forward for 20 years. Because if I could ever secure my arm, John Brzezinski and Ron Bath in 2006 said Michael Todd has got as strong an arm as anybody in the sport. If his hand and wrist ever catches his arm, we're screwed. Well, my hand and wrist got good, and I think I lost my arm strength. So I just replaced one for the other. But if I would have been training my hand and wrist the whole time, yes, do I think I would have had greater potential? Absolutely. And I think that's the key. Learn you don't have to be the Corey or Herman. You got to be what you're good at. I mean, now I believe that Travis, and this is going to sound mean, but it's not. I've never thought Travis was a great arm wrestler. I thought he was great at arm wrestling in one lane. But once the match stopped, I didn't think he really possessed the skills to be that good of an arm wrestler, because he focused on doing one thing really good. And that one thing he was one of the best in the world at. Well, one of the most impressive matches of Travis Bajan in my life was him versus Richard Lufke's. Because he didn't get the hit. He was fighting from over here. I saw arm wrestling skill. I saw Travis Bajan display an arm wrestling knowledge and ability to win a match where he didn't get everything on the go. That impressed me. And then when he beat Jerry Caderet in 2016, he did the perfect lane to beat Jerry. I'm saying all that to say, should you train one move to be your best at your one move? Absolutely. I think you should always train your ace, but go back to that weakness, the thing that you don't like. I was pulling with Chance a while ago, and Chance had everything. I was in the worst possible position, and I was comfortable pulling there because I know I'm going to end up there sometime. So practice pulling is not about winning. So many people have their egos when they come to the table. What, I'm going all over the place?
You went down a rabbit hole.
I'm a fuck, woo! But yeah, the point was how you should train. I think you should train your ace, but you also shouldn't, you don't have to try to be, if he's good at hooker, he's good at top, you don't have the genetics he has. People are like, well, can a long arm guy be a good hooker? Can a short arm guy be a good top row? Yes, you can be good at anything. We can do all the same techniques, you just gotta find out what's best for you. And don't try to chase someone else to be the best you, just find out what you're good at, train it, be consistent. I have been all over the place, I know.
Recovery is important.
Were we talking about recovery?
To protect your arm, okay?
Oh, so I do believe in high volume training too. I don't know how many people agree with that, but my approach the last 10 years has been a rehab style training. I just increase the amount of work each week when I'm prepping. So used to, I would lift really heavy all the time. And the next week I try to lift really heavier. And that helps, but I hurt all the damn time. I mean, I'll be 48 in June, and this is my 31st year. I don't hurt as bad anymore because of the way I train. Because every time I work out, it's just getting blood to that muscle, blood to that area. Blood heals damaged tissue, so try to do as much volume as you can. Now, I'm not saying don't do heavy lifting. Do your heavy stuff first, and then finish with volume. Because that volume, that blood heals your body. I don't know how I got on with that, but where we at? Questions? Yeah, you guys have to have some questions. Somebody.
Talk about which direction you go when you hit on the pad. You go straight back, don't you?
Okay, so there's two different styles of my arm wrestling. My previous arm wrestling was probably more straight back. It's more of a defensive style. I just had to stop the match. So much of my arm wrestling was stopping the match. Now, I've got people thinking, if y'all saw some of the recent training when I was pulling with Derek Smith and stuff, practicing Ready Goes, we were like, well, if you can stop him, when's the last time you heard somebody say, well, if you could stop Michael Todd? No one ever worries about stopping me. They're worried about me stopping them. So now I'm taking more offensive approach. And that offensive approach has been because of this. I changed my style of training from rope pulling for pronation to this for pronation. Because when I do this pronation, I'm actually getting pinning pressure with it. The other pronation is just here, right, with the rope. That's great for getting this if I just want to go straight back, right? But if I want to go to the pin pad, I've started pinning with pronation. So I'm more of an offensive style arm wrestler now. So my move, although my move is always going to be back, it's more back. I have two. I have a back outside and a back real hard side. That back side is different, isn't it? You'll feel the difference when you're pulling me. Like if I'm attacking his hand and he counters it, we might get into this. But if I attack back and sideways, turning his palm up, the stop that he was expecting doesn't happen anymore because I'm not going here anymore, I'm going there. So it's just changing angles. I'm way more offensive now.
From here to here with your elbow and then sideways?
I'm here to here. I used to be here to here for defense. For offense, I'm here to here. Where do you pull?
Yeah, same way.
I think everyone starts here and tries to end here, you know? Because we all wanted to have it all. I got so used to just going here to here to pronate out. But like I said, it put me in spots where I'm hanging on my bicep. I got Jerry Caderet laying on my arm. You know, I'm like, hell, why don't I just hit instead of hitting back? Because people are like, why don't you hit? I'm like, I did. I hit back. I just didn't hit sideways. The hit back stopped me from getting flashed, you know? So now it's more hitting with side pressure. Because I realized, especially with the upcoming match with Devin, if it would have been Levon, I had to be strong enough to stop the match. If I was strong enough to stop the match, I feel like I was going to win. Since the opponent has shifted to Devin just has to be strong enough to stop the match. Because he's as good arm wrestler as me, if not better, right? It's who makes the fewest mistakes wins. Unless I smack the shit out of him, you know? So my objective is 3-0, uneventful, the most boring 395 you've ever spent in your life, because I'm going to try to smack this dude as fast as possible, because I know if I don't and I let him in the match at all, it comes down to wills. And that dude's a warrior, you know? So sometimes you have to take a different approach. Do you want to find out who's got the more heart? Or do you want to just smack the shit out of somebody and get it over with, you know? I'm telling you, I'm in this thing to try to win as fast as possible. But I always am. People are like, why don't you flash people like Travis? I'm like, I wish I could. I just tend to get in long matches, you know? But even at 48 years old almost, and 31 years, I'm still trying to evolve my game. And that's what arm wrestling is. That's what everything is. Always try to be better than you were yesterday. But you're the only person asking questions, and you. What else we got?
I think I'm a little starstruck.
Yeah, Corey does that to people.
I'm Jeremy Garber.
Jeremy, nice to meet you, sir. Yes, sir.
We're big fans of yours.
Oh, awesome. Thanks.
I come from a bull riding background, so strength in the wrist, but it's a little different than what.
So is it back wrist strong?
Mainly down here like this. When you get up on your body, so your bicep, forearm here, it's constantly pulling to stay up on top of the bull.
No, I got
so different. I don't ride anymore. I've had neck injuries and surgeries and stuff, so I'm getting into arm wrestling. But I built a table, built some equipment, so I'm practicing. But I really want to get into it, so I just need to learn the different ins and outs of it. You know?
There's so much information online right now. Like we have an Arm Wrestling 101 series on our YouTube. Go watch that. Find out, get a pulley system. Always get a pulley system.
Find a local group.
I'm from the Waco area, and I got Devin's app, the arm bit. There's a couple people around there. I'm trying to get some guys so I can start pulling with. I've only had one match. It was the pizza delivery guy. Delivered a pizza, but he's a powerlifting champion or whatever. And so I beat him, but I haven't had any chance to train or anything. So
well, you're gonna have plenty of people to pull with here today too. But yeah, arm wrestling is about repetition. You got to get comfortable. It's just like anything else, you know. People, and it's funny when people are like, "Well, have you ever been beat?" Dude, I've lost 100,000 matches. I've just arm wrestled over 1 million. You know, I just don't lose much anymore. But it's 100,000 losses that got me there. You gotta get out there and learn. You know, people talk losing's learning. However you want to look at it, you will learn the more you're on the table.
Do you recommend the blood flow restriction training? Is that something you do on a weekly basis, or?
I only BFR when I'm prepping for a match, and I'll tell you why. I feel like if I train like a crazy person all the time, I have no way to increase the training. So I will do maintenance training throughout the year, and once I find out a match is coming, I will start increasing the workload, the weight each week, and then 6 to 8 weeks out, I started adding BFR. Now the main reason I do a BFR, it does increase growth hormone production, VO2 max, all that stuff, but it's the pump. The pump is so severe. It got to the point where it really didn't affect us anymore. We could do the workout with BFR or without BFR, and we were still fine because we were so used to the pump. But the reason a lot of people are like, well, if my hand wouldn't have got pumped, I would have won. Well, I choose to do all my arm wrestling training while I'm pumped. So if you prepare for worst case scenario in your training, and it doesn't come down like that, dude, that's awesome. But if you don't prepare for it and you're like, practice, overcome your knuckle or practice this, well, if you don't get that, you're like, well, I got cheated. Well, no, it was improper training, improper preparation. I choose to have perfect nutrition, perfect training, so I have a perfect outcome. There are very few things in life that you can control, right? Life's gonna happen, shit's gonna happen. What you choose to eat for your nutrition, you have an opportunity to be perfect. If you set a plan to say, I'm gonna do this, you can be perfect. You can't be like, well, you know, I couldn't get that big lift today. You can't, well, I couldn't eat that 4 ounces of chicken. No, you eat it, because you're supposed to eat it. So if you set it on there, and this is just an example. But, you know, you might get a perfect grade sometimes, you might have perfect attendance, but very seldom does someone have an opportunity to be perfect. With your nutrition and how you approach your preparation, you do have that opportunity. And it's up to you to do it. I mean, if you choose perfection, be perfect. If you don't, and you don't succeed, you only have yourself to blame. People are like, well, hey, your next opponent's so-and-so, your next opponent's so-and-so, how are you gonna train for this? Or what do you think about how they're training? I cannot waste my time worrying about what they're doing. The only thing that I can control is how hard I'm willing to work and what sacrifices I'm willing to make. That's it. The rest of life is, I'm just wasting my time worrying about shit. Just a little bit. You know, I don't know what he's gonna do. And if I'm sitting here, well, what if he does this? Well, what if he does that? Well, what if I just do what I do really, really well? If I do what I do really, really well, I think I beat him. So, and that's just the approach, right? So it's just, like I said, it all comes back to mental. So much of everything we do is about being mentally prepared, mentally tough. And as far as on the table, when a match stops, being comfortable, I mean, that just comes with practice. I mean, how many places on the table, are you right-handed, left-handed? How many places on the table right-handed are you uncomfortable? Not many. And that's me being pinned. Yeah. Anything slide short of me being pinned, I'm comfortable and I can still win. And that's what it has to be. You have to find spots where there's nowhere on this table, once that match says go, that I'm uncomfortable. And it just comes down to being there so many times, over and over and over. So finding someone to train with, finding someone to pull with, that's the best advice you can get for arm wrestling.
Definitely the hit, right? That's probably the hardest part to teach people. There's a misconception that fast twitch muscles, being fast and hitting hard, have anything to do with each other, right? Hitting, I would rather hit hard than be fast, 99% of the time, okay? There's always that fast twitch guy that's 132 pounds, he can put you on your bicep at practice, but he can't move you, right? Why do you want to be that guy? I want to be the dude who hits you so hard, you have no chance to contain my power. And here's a great example. If I can distribute 150 pounds of pressure with my hit and you can only curl 100, who do you think's gonna win, right? So do you wanna be a fast guy or explosive? Being explosive is having the ability to distribute your power that you can produce against your opponent in a very short period of time, right? And I use this one a lot. If you take a 100-pound dumbbell, which I'm sure everybody in this aisle can curl fairly easily, right? Take that 100 pounds and drop it from 4 feet and try to catch it. Probably none of you will be able to catch it, right? We work the defensive side of the table and we work the offensive side of the table. I don't train the defensive side of the table because I don't ever want to get she does because that's her training regimen. But me being an offensive arm wrestler, I don't want to catch anybody. My goal is to fucking kill you as fast as humanly possible. So, hitting is a lot about your initial setup at the table. How you walk to it, how you visualize where you're going to distribute that power. From my experience and from Travis dialing me in, a lot of people say I hit similar to Travis. What I got from Travis is my leg position, my rise, and the direction of which I hit. So here's my example. I'm sure you've all seen Travis, talk to Travis. He tells everybody the exact same thing. Nobody can do what he does, right? He's a one in a million. Nobody can arm wrestle like Travis. But what I did get from Travis is timing. My legs are in an athletic position whenever I'm at the table. What do I mean by athletic position? We've all played baseball, thrown football, tennis, it don't matter. You're in an athletic stance. One leg goes forward, the left leg goes back. Some guys will be underneath of it. If you want to learn how to hit, this is the most beneficial thing I'll ever tell you. Legs forward, flat-footed, okay? Arm is elevated, okay? And the reason why the arm is elevated is because when you hit as hard as I do, I don't want anything restricting my movement. So as the arm rises and I rise, I'm elevating my body. So on go, the direction I'm going, and I'm gonna use her for an example, if you wonder how you hit hard compared to being fast, okay? We've all been in the bar. We've all had that one douchebag who's fucking hammered and wants to fight, right? And you're either by yourself or you're with your lady, and you have one shot. This guy's with 6 fucking dudes. You got one fucking hit to knock this dude's teeth out, right? So as you're thinking about that right now, your adrenaline's starting to pump because you're in that situation where you're like, I gotta fucking kill this guy, and I only got one shot. So I visualize that dude's right here in my ear, and he's just you're like, oh man, I'm not getting out of this, and I can't fight, all right, at all. So if I hit you one time, it's lights out, or I'm running for dear life, okay? If Andrew, but so I imagine that this guy, Michelle, sorry, that's the second time I've done that, is in my ear. So as I'm rising, you're visualizing that one punch. So as you rise, as you're gonna get ready, as you punch somebody, right? Because we all know how to swing. I rise, and it's everything you got in a short burst of time, this direction. That's why I put her right here. I didn't put her over here at the pad, I put her right behind my shoulder. I high hook, right? It is the most devastating move in arm wrestling if you want to learn how to hit the high hook. The reason being, I don't hit to the pad. I don't hit forward into the hook. I hit directly backwards. You go back over here for a second. And the reason why, come over, the reason why I hit directly backwards is because as I'm going full elbow forward, as I'm hitting elbow forward, I am applying pressure directly through her bicep all the way to my corner of the mat, right? I am not hitting sideways through her hand. I'm not hitting into her bicep. I'm hitting backwards. And this motherfucker is the guy who helped me, and I'll tell you, when you keep your elbow forward as you hit, it will allow you 6 inches more movement than you would if you went straight backwards. And here's the difference, ready? If I go here and he stops me, now I gotta transition to side pressure. Now I gotta pin that person here or here and all hand, right? So when you hit with that elbow forward, right? Now I'm like, yeah, bitch, I got you, and I got all that left to kill that dude, right? So it's just really important to keep that elbow forward as you hit.
And note to yourself too, you can't be in here at the gym all day and then go to the table and think you're gonna be happy with your elbow that far away. So whatever you decide to do, make sure whatever you're doing here, that's what you're doing when you're training. If you always do that, you don't have to train as much. A lot of us got to train their biceps, then we go to arm wrestling practice. This right here, whatever, because it's going to be different sometimes. You got to make sure that you can take it into the gym and still do that. So for me, all of my lifts are with my elbow that far away because I know that it's going to come in because I'm scared. In 20 minutes, you'll have a 15-minute break.
Okay, does everybody know what the high hook is? Do we have an idea at least what the high hook is? It is the ability to do whatever the opposite of what your opponent is trying to do. Okay, come up here real quick. So, when I explain people what the high hook is, I tell you to turn your hand over and bend your wrist straight down, right? John Brzenk high hooks better than anybody in the world, and that is why he's the greatest of all time. When John attacks your hand, all he's doing is he's finding your weakness. When you go this direction, right there, it's kind of scary because you're in between a hook and a top roll. The whole point of this move is to counter whatever your opponent's doing. If we're right here and my opponent tries to come outside and do a top roll, I have her blocked. If she tries to, I haven't moved my hand at this point. If she tries to come inside, I have her blocked. And my hand hasn't changed. As soon as you go that direction, it's you're feeling where their weakness is and following them as you're applying the pressure. Don't be so stuck in your head to where I got that hand and then you're just like trying to drive into a hook and you're trying to bury them. You just feel it. It's like a feel thing. As you're applying the pressure, you're feeling where your opponent is going to get really weak. Go ahead.
Well, I am not as fast as him, okay? But I try to. But he also talks about he doesn't train in the defense, but I'm always, not always, but a lot of the time in the bad position. So I feel that if I don't train in that position, I'm going to panic, I'm going to freak out, and I'm not going to know what to do. And you know, you can't think, it's so quick. So I personally train that way, obviously the other way too. But I really feel that for me, I need it. I don't know about you guys, but I need to be comfortable enough to know that I can get out of that position. Because I do not hit fast. And I'm not sure, does anybody here hit faster or no? Just, yeah. So you probably have been taken there too. I don't know what you guys wanted to talk about today, but my plan was to talk a lot about training and what I did, but I don't know how much you guys are training. Does anybody do a lot of training in the gym or just your job? Yeah. So do you do like powerlifting or what type of things do you do?
I do a mix of both. Yeah. I do a mix of both, and I try to change everything up every 6 weeks.
Yeah.
I'll do pretty much everything.
Do you incorporate arm wrestling stuff into your workout, or you just do weight training?
Basically, just everything I do, I put everything on my hands and wrists, and fingers. I put some kind of pressure on my hands and wrists.
Yeah. I have in the past year and a half changed my workout routine because I'm constantly lifting heavy, but I found that my hands and my wrists were not as strong as, say, my back pressure. We talked about this earlier. So to make it stronger, I do a lot of stuff like in between sets. So say it's back day, doing some lat pull downs. In between, I have like this ball that's kind of squishy, and I hold it with and flip it back and forth, or walk around with it, just to get my hands and my wrists strong. Because I don't know about you, but like a couple times just yesterday in the bar, I set up with somebody and I'm like, I cannot move their hand. And that messes with your opponent's mind, you know? But then you go up against somebody else and you're like, you can just feel that they haven't trained their hand and wrist, and it's like, yeah. I don't know if you are friends with me on Facebook or anything, but this girl at the bar on Friday night was ridiculous. Okay, she's screaming, like she was calling me out, right? And so I didn't want to hurt her, you know, because you're training with somebody that's that drunk. So I just kind of let her take me down, and then she's like screaming, yeah. So my husband, I told my husband I just want to get off the table. I'm afraid I'm going to hurt her. And he's like, no, you have to do this. She's calling you out. So I did it and just crushed her. And it felt like nothing. It did feel good. Trust me. She was in my face. She was like, yeah, it's crazy. Awesome. But anyhow, so I feel hand and wrist definitely are real important, along with everything else. But Do you have any questions for me about training or all the time? All of your
So your hands obviously is like, it's the same question from 90% of all arm wrestlers. It's how do I get my hands strong, right? We all lift a tremendous amount of weight in the gym and we all think we have strong hands, but then we go up against that one dude where you're like, wow, my fucking hand is weak. It happens to all of us, right? So let's talk a little bit about your idea of back pressure. What is back pressure to you? Like what direction is back pressure? Okay, hammer. So my idea of back pressure is the ability to hold on to something with your wrists slightly bent and lat drag. Okay, so all 5 or 6 of you, if we all went to the gym right now, you would all be racking the weight and I'd be like, holy shit, that's a lot of weight, okay? Soon as we put on some rotating handles, now all of a sudden it's a little closer. Now all of a sudden, maybe I have the advantage over some of you because my hands are so strong, I can pull weight back easier than you can because my hands, right? So, whatever I do in the gym, it involved hands. And as Todd Hutchings says, you want to be strong in every other little area in arm wrestling. All those little weird muscles, the top of the forearm, the bottom of the forearm, working out your thumb, working out your supination, your pronation, your rise, the reverse hammer curl, all that shit is just as important because you may not feel like you're seeing any gains because they're so small. But when you get into a match where you have to apply pressure on your opponent's hand through those small muscles, that could be the difference between winning and losing. So, if you guys are like me, I like working out as much as I like training for arm wrestling. You guys are all big motherfuckers and like working out, right? And it's hard to dedicate so much time to getting your fucking hands strong because you're so, it's just like working out so much. And it sucks, it's painful, and the results are very slow, and we're given a lot of misinformation on what makes your hands strong. These grippers, I don't use, and the only time I would ever recommend using them is if you're using them with a bent elbow, with a bent wrist. Basically, just neutral to here, right? Some guys will do tons and tons of high reps. Travis taught me this as well. I like using these guys because I don't want to steal any of their shit. When I'm preparing for a tournament, I have a racquetball which simulates somebody's thumb that I keep on me all day long. And I carry that ball around in my thumb and I'm simulating that I'm gripping up with someone with a thick hand. And what that does is it conditions your hand to be able to go on an entire tournament and win round after round after round without losing your hand. Because in the middle of a match, we all lose our hand. Like that's the first thing to go. You get into a war round 1 and you're like, oh shit, my fucking hand is done, right? That specific exercise will help you in the long-term endurance goals that you have in arm wrestling. So do you guys want to talk about any specific exercises for training? Or, I mean, who do you guys train with? Do you have a team? Do you go...
He just got so close.
Oh, God. Why don't you just take over for me?
What you did to build your hand strength, I might have missed it because I had to step out. Did you cover that already?
Not like real specifically, but I do a ton of pronation work because pronation, go ahead.
Okay, sorry. What do you rank pronation, supination, cupping? What do you rank them?
So reverse hammer curls and pronation, I would go pronation 1, reverse hammers 2, supination 3, and cupping is somewhere up in the top with all those because I do tons and tons of but if we're talking about just rotational work, pronation is by far the best because when I'm come up here real quick, when I'm in that high hook, right? Once let go of my hand real quick. Once I'm in that position, there is no more of this, right? When I high hook, it's a wrist crunch, it's pronation, or it's reverse hammer. There is no more supination once I'm in that position. Yes, let's talk about that real quick. What's that? So, I don't like to tell people that they're doing is wrong. Everybody has their own thing, but I don't arm wrestle like this. And I don't know too many people that do arm wrestle like this. If you look at where the pressure goes on your hand with this exercise, the pressure is coming through the fingertips. So East Coast guys train with their fingers flat. West Coast guys train with their hand more of a cupping position. I don't know why that is. A lot of guys train that with a piece of wood where they want to get this really, really strong. The pressure on my hand comes through the very end of my fingers. When I'm working out with a grip, with any type of a gripper, I create a gap, which is my idea of what cupping is. I don't know if that's correct, but I create a gap in between every gripper. So when I'm working that area, I'm simulating that there being a gap there. So all the pressure comes from my fingertips, not through the top of my hand. Same thing when you're doing any type of fat grip work or whatever it is. I never have that thing sitting there because I don't care about the pressure coming through the center of my knuckles. I want all that pressure. I arm wrestle like that. I don't arm wrestle like that. I don't arm wrestle like that. So I just think whatever hand exercise you're gonna do, just as best as you can, make it seem like you're actually at the table arm wrestling your opponent. Because those, as far as gains are concerned, the most gains I've ever seen are from doing tons of pronation work, which I pronate off my thumb. And it's funny, did you guys see that video we just posted about the PR? Everybody's putting a strap over their hand. I was so weak at that, which is weird because I have so much pronation, but I have such a weak, I don't know what it is. I think there's two different types of pronation. So, and I think Ingen Terzi said this once, it could have been somebody else, but when your hand is up, right? When the wrist is up, it can be turned very easily, right? So, like Justin Bishop, I beat Justin Bishop because I'm attacking his rotation. I'm attacking this before I attack the hand. So what the pronation that I train comes from the bottom of the wrist. I want, if you practice with me today, you come up to the table, I'm a top roller, and right here is the strongest part of my body. And it looks like we're in a hook. I can apply more pressure from right here than anywhere else on the table. Because what I want is I'm creating my cup, and I'm driving with my pronation, which I think is pronation, through my wrist, through my opponent's lower fingers. I'm not doing this. I'm pivoting with my bone through her bottom fingers. So when I do any type of strap workouts, I put a knot because otherwise it'll slide down. I'll take a foam ball because I want everything to feel like I'm arm wrestling. So I'll take a foam ball, I'll put it in my hands, put a knot here, and the weight comes directly off the ground with the dumbbell. So come up here, grip it with my hand. I'm pretending like somebody's turning me into a hook. So the pressure would be her trying to turn me in, right? To grab that strap. So she could apply pressure through that part of my hand a little bit. So I now gotta fight through that strap. So when you're doing it with you can do dumbbells, you can do plates, it doesn't really matter. But just make sure that that strap is coming across your bone. And I start flat, like I just showed you, the strongest part of my arm is when I'm turned in. That's probably because when I train my pronation, I come all the way down and I rotate all the way through the motion. Because I don't care about top rolling here. Have you guys done any like heavy hammer curls with dumbbells? What's the first thing that fails? Your hand, right? It goes straight down. So, I think my max is around 100 pounds or so, like 90 to 100 pounds before my wrist fails. But that riser, I don't think is very beneficial in arm wrestling. So I wouldn't focus so much on that rise as I would on pronating through. Now, hammer pressure is obviously, that's what I call it, not back pressure, but hammer pressure I feel is very important, but not through the top knuckle. I think hammer pressure is important to stay tight here, but that wrist up, it's too easy to contain that position when your wrist is straight up. Way too easy. If somebody comes up to the table with me and is doing this, I'm like, thank you, go for it. Waste all that fucking energy. I'm just gonna let you lift my elbow. I'm not even gonna try to match that. That's where we get a little confused, where you go into the match with a game plan and somebody's posting like that, and you think you got to match that pressure, and you're not strong there. So what ends up happening is you're like, fuck, I can't do that. I got to start posting with them, and then you get your hand taken and you lose. When really, all you had to do is calm the fuck down, get off of, here, I'll show you the difference. Go real high in post, right? Where I'm like, oh fuck, what am I gonna do? This guy's like fucking gonna take my hand. So instead of like being where you would normally be comfortable, now I go under my thumb. You stay high, but you don't cap. What that allows you to do, these two fingers right here, does everybody cap here? You guys all cap? No cap at all? If I'm trying to slip? No cap? Okay, so there's two benefits to capping. Sorry, there's a benefit to each. The reason why you double cap is this muscle in your opponent's hand. When your thumb is down, these two fingers apply so much pressure through the top of their thumb, it paralyzes them. Okay? It allows your opponent to not get a grip. It makes it very difficult to control, right? But in the situation we were just talking about where she was posting really high, now I want to control the back of her hand as much as possible. And what I can do with that is I can now re-grip under my thumb and come around the hand. And now keep in mind, I'm still top rolling, but now I'm around the hand. Now I'm controlling, with these two fingers, I'm controlling the back of her hand instead of the thumb. Here I'm controlling the thumb, here I'm controlling the hand. So it's like using Justin Bishop as an example, high posting pressure, just go back with me a little bit. So my pressure is a cup, and then I top roll, right? It's all just a matter of feeling out where your opponent, what he's doing, let them waste all their energy getting into a really fucked up position, and then counter what they're doing, and you'll be a way more successful wrestler.
I mean, I do a lot of, I do my cupping every day. I feel it a lot in my fingers. I feel like that's a weak spot for me. So I do that every day, especially when I'm getting ready for something. I use my grippers every day, really light. I flip them, I do my pinkies. I just feel like, I agree with Luke when he says these two fingers are really, a lot of people don't like them. But I use my grippers for that, and I do this type of thing and flip it around. I do, like I said, with my ball, and I toss it back and forth. But I don't know. Do you guys have any questions or comments or anything?
Do you guys have goals to be at like a higher level? Like, do you guys want to like move up? Is that, do you guys love arm wrestling? Is it like a passion of yours? Yeah, you want to move up? What do you think? Do you think it's like a physical attribute that you lack to move on to the next level? Do you think it's genetics, or do you think it's your mind?
Table sports, I think, is my biggest problem at the moment. There's not enough time.
Right.
How long have you been pulling?
6 years.
How do you think that you can move yourself from here to the next level? Do you think it's training, or do you think it's just in improving your table IQ? Like,
I think training and training with the right people. That's what I think. I mean, I've been trying to get around more and train with more experienced pullers lately.
We all hit these plateaus in arm wrestling where we really feel like we can't move past the next level. I've been there so many times where I'm just like, what am I fucking doing? How am I ever gonna? And then we make up a bunch of excuses. That dude had fucking Halo and Trent in his system. He was a fucking giant. Like, there's no way I'm gonna beat this guy, right? Like, I've made excuses my whole life. Is like, this dude beat me because of this dude beat me because of that. It really comes down to just, I think about, I have to train harder than everybody else. That's how you got to get past that level. This shit is not fucking easy, and it's not for the faint of heart. If you want it, you have to go get it and make no excuses. And every year, this is true. Every year, I think there's nothing else I can learn. I'm at my peak. I cannot get any stronger. I cannot learn anymore. There's nothing. I change my theory on how to get stronger at arm wrestling every year. Anybody know about the buckle? You know. Does anybody else know about the buckle? What do you know about the buckle?
You don't want it.
Okay. Why don't you want it?
It'll make it easier for you to be taken.
So it pulls your hand down. Okay. When I get called to the stage, right, I look at the brackets, I know who I'm going to pull against, I know who's an idiot and who's not, who's paying attention, who's not. If you want to win events, you have to be aware of what is going on, who's in your bracket, what referee is calling you to the table, see who's going to call you up, because I'll be like this, look at the table, all right, no chalk. That side of the table, please. Thank you. I'll wait for him to grip, and then I'll go get chalk after I got my side of the table. You make sure, if you're a strap puller or you hate pulling the strap, make sure you get to that side of the table, which is the opposite side of the ref, right? You do not want to be looking over at the ref, tightening that buckle down. Because as soon as it's the difference between me beating Justin Bishop and losing to Justin Bishop is who gets the buckle, right? I'm sure he would have a winning record on me if he had had the buckle the matches that I won, because that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. Depending on the rules and what tournament you go to, you can always ask the referee in advance who decides who gets the buckle. Because if both of you are aware of the buckle and both of you are like, no, I want that side, this match is going to be close, we need a flip, then you can be like, well, we don't need a flip because they called my name up first, right? So depending on what federation you're arm wrestling with, sometimes the guy with the first that is called first gets the choice what side he wants, or they'll flip. But being aware of your surroundings will make you a much more successful arm wrestler.